Alright, back down in the shop. Let's get back to work on the wing. Now, something else I did off camera, I've got the leading edge all sanded down. And it's something I've done in the past. I just couldn't find the tool that I made back last time I did one. I took an old putty knife. What I did is I mashed this up to the plan and just went ahead and ground it out with a little die grinder. And then if you can see it, it's not perfect, but it's really close. And then I use it like a cabinet scraper. We're going to be able to come on in and draw it out. So pretty much put it on there and just go ahead and scrape it. And that gets you almost down to the perfect size. And then, you know, spend about, you know, a minute or two sanding, and it's finished. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, I'm going to glue the end caps on. And then we're gonna, once the end caps are on, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna cut out the hinges, or the ailerons. Now what I already did, with the hopes that you're gonna be able to see this, I already came in and cut almost all the way through. There and there, and I figured out the plans. I'd see, and it's because they were just misdrawn. But once you really figure out what you're doing with this one, it's actually, it's easy to understand once you get it figured out. So I've already got those already cut, pre-cut. So when I get the end caps on, all I've got to do is just, I'm going to put the little, it's whatever they call that one, the surface spar. So I got to glue the surface spars in first. And then once the surface spar's in, I'll just got to come in with my little Zona saw and just finish cutting these things through, and they're going to drop off, and then it's just going to be a matter. So it's just going to make things go easier. I'm hoping. I'm very much so hoping. So anyway, let's go ahead and get the cameras relocated, and we'll get started. Well, it's been a very long day. Got a lot of little stuff done. Of course, not as much as I'd like to get done. I always think that it'll take me an hour or 2 hours to get something done, where it's going to take 4 to 6 hours. So one of these days I'll kind of figure out how to properly do a time estimate on my builds. So here's about where we're at right now. I'm gonna bring you over to the GoPro in a little bit. Let me just show you. I've got the wingtips on. They're not rounded yet. They're sitting. They're flush. They're all sanded down with the wing. I just haven't rounded the ends yet. That time will come. I've just got to make the time for it. So, and then the other little things that you're going to see better on this camera than the other camera is where you've got the little spars, the little surface spars. It's just because of how they were put on. It went across the ribs. So when I was gluing things up, if the glue hit and then it pulled it down a little bit, it's down a little bit. And originally I spent a little bit of time with an X-Acto knife going in, cutting the glue joint and then popping it and re-gluing it, and it just seemed like it was a whole lot of work. Whereas that piece of spar, because it's a surface spar, it's not nearly as strong as the main spars, the upper and lower. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to probably just come over the top of it with some really thin balsa in the low spots. I'll just go ahead and fill it just to make it level, make it easier to sand. So I may just run a really quick strip down the full length of it and just let it glue up, and then go ahead and sand it, and then we'll just call it done. You may see it, you may not see it, but it's still there for a purpose, and its purpose is being fulfilled. So anyway, over to this side. Here, I just want to make sure that that's running. Yep. Okay. On this side, I went and I fully sheeted the bottom of it. You'll see those little open gaps. That will get filled. Some of this here has already been filled just from sanding it, and I haven't come in with any thin CA. I'll do that eventually, just to fill the little gaps. I think I spoke earlier that this piece here was something that I wasn't 100% happy with the piece I put in for the dowels to come in for their front. So what I did is I cut a hole in it, went down and put a piece of I think it's 64th or 132nd plywood in there too, just for a little bit of added strength. So something I really didn't have to do, but the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to do it, so I just went ahead and did it. Okay, now on this side, I have not sheeted this center section yet. It's only supposed to get sheeted from here to here, so pretty much all the way across, and then this is all open. I have not decided if I want to do that yet, or just go ahead and run it all the way down to the end. That little bit, it's not that big of a deal. I can go ahead and leave it open if I care to. I don't know yet. That's something I'm still debating on. So anyway, I've already got my little pieces of light ply cut. That's going to be the door. It's going to be the hatch door where the servos go. Now, I'm going with the HS81s, and I don't remember what the person's name was, but somebody went ahead and they threw in the description, have you thought about putting HS85s in? I do have two HS85s here. One of them is already been allocated for the tiger moth. I got a 5th scale tiger moth that's I'm gonna start building right after I get done with this one, because this one will not get flown until next spring anyway. So I'll get everything all painted up, maybe take a couple weeks off, and then go ahead. I can use them if I cared to. It's the same size as this, but instead of being 42 inches of torque, it's 48. So I can kind of work with the 6. I've used these before, and because we're working with an aileron that's only this big, that won't have a problem moving that aileron. So, and if I did decide that I wanted to change up to something bigger, that's why I'm making this mounting plate. This is just going to be the cover, but this is gonna sit on top of this. So it's pretty much going to go down inside. Sorry about that. Such as this, and then I just got to make sure that I've got a little opening for it. So these are already cut to begin with, and then I'll show you when I'm making the inner framework, and then I can go ahead. So I'll cut the hole, make the inner framework, glue everything in place, and then boom, it's done. So that as of right now, that's pretty much an easy go. So that's going to be put in, and of course then I've got to have the extension. It comes all the way through, so I've got to get my wires run. This, I've got two options. I can either paint it with this one already in, and I have done this in the past, or I can just go ahead and tack glue a string through and run it all the way up to here. And that's probably what I'm going to do, because where the landing gear is, it's probably going to be easier for me to use a Y harness that's coming into the wing. So the wire harness will come in, and it'll make it easier for me to get the landing gear in and out if I use the longer Y harness that I've already got. So that's going to go into it will be going into use on this, but I think I will be running some strings through. So, and of course you'll see how everything's going to work with this one. If I don't sheet this, it's going to make it easy to get things in and out. Then I've just got to go match 1, 2, and then 3 holes to get something through into that area where it's going to come out. So anyway, that's pretty much really about how I've got everything set up. These are already set. I've just got to fine them, use a little bit of filler on them. But the ailerons are already, you know, pretty much just about done. They ended up being right about there. That's where I wanted them. So so we're good on the ailerons on both sides. All right, everyone, welcome back down to the shop. Today's been a very busy day. Started down here, worked for about maybe an hour and a half down in the shop on the wing. And then I had a bunch of stuff to go into town to take care of. And then it's just been hour upon hour of editing videos. With the 3 videos, because I've edited 3 videos today. It was probably about 70 to 80 clips, video clips, edited together. And a lot of the stuff was just throw out. Because at one point in time, it's where I made that little statement on, it was getting kind of hodgepodge. Yeah, it's probably about 10, at least 10 of those videos were chucked because it just, there was no steady line of advancement. It was 1 step forward, 2 steps back. So there was a whole lot of that. So that was just a long day too. But anyway, let me show you where we are at with the plane. All right, now this is where the wing's gonna sit for quite some time. Only because this is where all the wiring is going to be drawn through. So what I'm going to do is the last thing I'm going to do to this wing is I'll make the final decision if I want to have these last 4 bays open or if I just want to sheet it all the way across. Because if I had them open, it gave me, it would only help me out at one point in time, and that was the first time I was running wires through, where it's a very short little jump across 3 bays to get into here instead of, but it's a good possibility it's just going to be sheeted. I have not decided at this point in time, but it may just be sheeted. It's going to be easier, and it'll be a little more steadfast. If you pick up the wing, less chance of doing anything. Silk span is it's a tougher fabric than you think it is. It's even though they call it silk span, it's like an interweaving of, it's almost like paper and fabric. But if you kind of look at it, it almost has the same look as like a dollar bill. So it does have a certain amount of toughness to it. when you pick it up, it doesn't feel as fragile as it does when you get it wet and you're putting it on. So that's the strange thing, is once you get it all dried and then use the nitrate dope to lock all the weave together, it's stronger than you think it is. But anyway, let me just kind of get you caught up with where I'm at right now. So this is what I was talking about when I was going to use my little flat pieces of wood. And you're going to look at the way these are kind of hung on this side, and they are dirty. I mean, it's got to be cleaned up. But when you come on and look here, all right, here's the plate. So that's where the servo is going to be mounted to. What I did is I cut it to the size I needed it, and I came inside here and I used that as a template to make marks, and to go ahead and on the corners where the corners are supposed to be, I just put a pin through. So when you flipped it upside down, you saw your four pinholes, and you knew your corner points were at. So, so that was not that big of a deal. That was probably about, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes of time. And then the other half hour was sanding down these wingtips, trying to get them round. I'm pretty happy with them. Oh, I'm banging the ceiling with the other side. It's going to be a little bit rounder than this. And that's just finessing with a with one of these. It's just a little sanding block, and it's just finesse. And it's that when you're rounding it, you're not so much going in a straight pattern, but when you are, let's see if I can kind of show you, just so you've got a good indication of how I'm doing it. So what you're doing is you're coming in and you're actually sanding it like this. So you're trying to sand it, you're trying to sand that curve in. And then once you get it where you want it, then I sweep it like this, where I'm sweeping it around. So that way you're blending in that radius so that it looks really clean. It's not difficult to do, it just takes a little bit of time, and you know, I've had years of practice, so it's to me it's easy. The first time that you do it, it's just something you'll want to pay attention to, because, sorry, I'm just looking at something funky. Sanding is kind of like cutting wood. If you cut it too short, it's still too short. So if you sand too much off, then you end up having to come on in, and I've done it, and you've got to come back in and glue on some thin balsa, so that way you can go ahead and start sanding. My de Havilland Tiger Moth, that happened. It may happen on the nose of this airplane that I may sand a little bit too far, but that's sanding is when you want to take the time to try to do it right the first time. And it's when you first originally start pulling material off, it was me and my little block plane. That was where I probably got about 2/3 to 3/4 of it removed, because I can do it relatively quick. But it was the final that probably took about the same amount of time, was sanding it. But it's, you know, I'm pretty happy with it. So anyway, that's about where we're at right here on the wing. So next time I'm back down in the shop, we're going to flip that fuselage upside down. We'll get the holes drilled for the locating pegs up in the front of the wing. So I'll show you how everything's got to be properly measured out. So we may have to open up the side door and jump into the to the garage where all the outdoor equipment's stored. So I might have to push all that outside. But I want room to work with this one, and we may just, you know, go move over there just to get that taken care of. So, but yeah, so we're moving right along pretty good. So I will see everyone next time I'm back down in the shop.